The next bill is on street racing and exhibition driving, prohibited acts, enforcement and penalties, HB 601, SB 442. The Senate bill is going to be heard tomorrow. The House bill is going to be heard, I believe, on the 15th. Street racing has been an issue of importance to Montgomery County. This is a penalties bill that would enhance penalties.
This has become a huge safety and quality of life issue. It got exponentially worse during the pandemic when roadways were more open and people were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, and giving more tools to local law enforcement to be able to address some of these issues is important. It's something that I know my inbox and I know other colleagues' inboxes have been littered with concerns and questions about how we address this. This is an opportunity that our state partners are putting forward to help us with that. So I think it makes sense. Several colleagues want to speak to this. Let me first turn it to Vice President Stewart.
Thank you. And I want to note the number of delegates and senators, state senators who are already on this bill. And that really, I think, highlights the need to do something about this. Unfortunately, my district has seen a great deal of these in downtown Silver Spring, and actually there was one 2 blocks from my house on Saturday night where the City of Tacoma Park Police had to call in Montgomery County and Prince George's resources, and I cannot believe no one was hurt from this event, given the number of cars, what was happening, and the taunting of our police department by folks. And so I think it's time we need to move on this, and I just hope that we can support this as a body. And I just want to say thank you. I see some of our officers here for their work on this, and Dr. Stoddard, I know this has been a priority for his office as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much. I agree with that. It is absolutely unbelievable that we need this type of legislation. But not only do we need it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilmember Balcom.
So yes, this is a big issue. I hear it every single night, and I'm right along Great Seneca Highway. I'm just curious why the council staff didn't recommend support of this. Just curious.
Good afternoon. I apologize about that. I had not had time to get in contact with the police department to get any feedback. I wanted to see exactly how it would enhance their ability to enforce these types of measures. Since you've got all the subject matter experts behind me, they can, but in general, yes, I would have recommended support.
Okay, thank you. And I fully support this.
Thank you for that clarification. Hear it and hear about it is kind of the theme of this conversation. Councilmember Ming.
Thank you. I agree that this is an important issue that we've all been hearing about and that we all want to do something about, and as do I. I just have questions about whether this is the right tool, whether we've seen legislation like this be effective in other jurisdictions. I don't know how much time we have to get into it, but I would have also been curious to hear from NCPD about how this would enhance their ability to enforce, and whether this is the best route to go. I know that generally speaking, research and data is not good when it comes to trying to crack down on certain classes of crime by increasing penalties. That's typically not effective and has a lot of unintended consequences. So I would like to, I'm not comfortable supporting this right now without more information around that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. Echoing those who support this, because this is a significant issue throughout the county, right? There's really not a pocket left that hasn't been touched by this. And one thing I just wanted you to clarify, that motor vehicle, as used in the transportation article, also includes motorcycles, correct?
As far as I know, but I also have the subject matter experts here that could speak.
I see them nodding. Yes, thank you. That's important because there's a stretch of the ICC running through my district, for example, where motorcycles end up being, it's not just cars, or car meetups that happen in the parking lots. It's also groups of folks on motorcycles who are traveling around who are engaging in this conduct. And you know, I appreciate my colleagues' concerns about unintended consequences, but this is one method of saying, if you are making the choice to engage in this behavior, know clearly this is the outcome, right? And the outcome of if they do it and don't get caught can be serious bodily injury or death to another, right? So it's a way to forecast consequences so that people are making a more informed choice about the behaviors they're engaging in. One would hope you don't have to think too hard about not doing this, but there we are. We have seen this get more severe since the pandemic, and it's time to take care of that, especially in the realm of people filming themselves doing these things and then broadcasting it out. So this is a significant issue, and I wholeheartedly support the bill.
Appreciate that. Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you. If we could have, Assistant Chief Yamada, just the difference between, right now, you're kind of monitoring and not doing anything unless you see something. You talked about what you're doing now and what this would allow you to do, because it's obviously a huge issue. And
yeah, well, what we're doing now is we try to get ahead of these events as they occur, place officers high visibility throughout a corridor 29, especially from Burtonsville all the way down into downtown Silver Spring, so that the participants in these events, when they come into Montgomery County, they see our cruisers. And we have noted that they have noted our presence and then chose another place to go. So that's one.
so the deterrence is a big part of it.
Deterrence is a big way. One of the things historically that we have found is that these violators, there's very little consequence for them. They oftentimes do not own the vehicle that they're driving. They oftentimes do not have a valid driver's license. So when you talk about putting more points on a license you don't have, there's
Right.
very little incentive for them to stop. We can debate whether that's being done on purpose. I would suggest it is to a great extent. These violators are repetitive. We've seen this behavior go on for years in the county and then escalate to the point where somebody's involved in either a traffic fatality or, as we saw with Sergeant Kep, a life-altering injury.
So the bill would change this to a penalty of a year in jail, or 60 days in jail if no one's injured, or a $1,000 fine, and a year in jail if someone's injured. That's how I'm reading it. Is that your understanding?
One of the other things I'll point out for the council is over the last 3 years, I think since 2020, and Lieutenant O'Brien, correct me if I'm wrong, but our collision reconstruction team, they handle all our fatals and investigate other very serious collisions. So they've handled 165 cases, and in that 165, I think 40% involve either reckless, negligent, greater speed as a contributing factor, things like that. So it's a large portion of our more serious and fatal collisions that are involved in these types of offenses.
Sure. And do you arrest people now? Have you gotten to anyone that's doing this now?
So an officer can and has gone out and gotten an arrest warrant for somebody. But
That you've identified through?
Yes.
Because obviously intervening in the moment is pretty dangerous in and of itself.
Correct. It would be like me seeing you going down the highway at 150 miles an hour. I know that's Will Jordan.
I have never done that.
Correct. And then I go obtain a warrant for your
Okay.
arrest.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I know, so most of this is done after the fact, kind of identifying who's there and then trying to find the people so you can deter it.
Correct. And again, that
Yeah.
allows the driver, that particular violator, to continue that behavior that entire time.
Got it. I appreciate the conversation. I think in this instance, it makes sense to also do the work that Councilmember mentioned as far as looking into like what is actually working. This isn't the only place this is happening in the country, but also giving tools to the extent that you can find who the folks are, so that it can be a higher deterrent effect. So I'll support it.
I think
Appreciate that.
what Captain Jensen would point out as well is that other states, other jurisdictions have penalties that are more enhanced than our own. And that has enabled them to get out in front of
In a scary way, we learned that in the Sergeant Cap situation where we couldn't believe that there weren't more tools at the disposal
Correct.
to deal with, horrific repeat offenders. I'll just note, in no other circumstance, when you're talking about a deadly weapon, and a vehicle is a deadly weapon, as we have seen far too many times and any of us are comfortable with, would we allow for certain things to happen with such limited penalties. And so if similar circumstances were happening with a gun or with a knife, where people were threatening things that were inherently dangerous to the broader public, we would shut it down immediately and we wouldn't think twice about it. But for whatever reason, we view cars, even though they're also deadly weapons, in fact, they are some of the deadliest of weapons in reality in our community, we don't treat it in the same way, and I think we have to start thinking in that light. This is not an act of desperation, it's an act of reckless recreation that can lead to death. And I think it's very helpful that our colleagues at the state are helping us to address it. So we'll take a vote, it seems, unless very, very, very briefly.
I just wanted to, if there's a short, since you're up at the table now, Assistant Chief Yamada, if there's a very brief answer that you can give us to help me understand what the additional tools are that this. I see that this is enhanced penalties, but what additional tools does this give to our officers to be able to enforce, to stop somebody to enforce? Like, because you mentioned somebody that there has been a warrant, we've arrested before. It seems like it would be helpful to do that in more situations, but does this help us do that, or is this just greater penalties when you are able to do that?
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you mean by additional tools. It doesn't. There are enhanced penalties. It creates consequences for these violators, and is another method of deterrence.
Okay. So, but we are currently able to arrest people if you can get a warrant, track them down, all those. But it's difficult to do, right?
It is very difficult to do. As I said, a lot of times these violators are not driving cars that belong to them, so it's
Right.
not like I can run the tag or see the tag as it goes by,
Right.
Note the tag, and then go back and locate the violator. They do not
Right.
have licenses.
So it seems to me that that's the bigger problem here, and that this bill doesn't actually help with that. It just makes it so that if we catch somebody, we can give them a bigger penalty. But I do think it would be worth thinking about how we could create additional tools for being able to actually find and stop people. Thank you.
Okay, why don't we vote? Those who favor supporting this bill, please raise your hand. Okay, that's 9. Those who would prefer to hold, that's 9 for support, 1 for hold. So 9-1, and one colleague not present. Okay, let's move on.